For a long time, I pretended to understand English, even when I did not. I had studied English for several years before moving to the United States, and my test scores were usually good. I could read articles, write emails, and understand my teachers in class. However, real conversations were much harder. People spoke too fast. They joined words together, used expressions I had never learned, and sometimes changed the subject before I understood the first sentence. When that happened, I usually smiled and nodded. I was afraid to ask someone to repeat a sentence. I worried that they would think my English was poor. I also worried that I would make the conversation slow or uncomfortable. Pretending to understand seemed easier than admitting that I felt confused. At first, this habit caused only small problems. Sometimes a classmate explained the homework, and I nodded even though I understood only half of the instructions. Later, I checked the class website and found the information myself. Sometimes a cashier asked me a question, and I agreed without knowing what I had agreed to. I occasionally received a larger drink, an extra bag, or a receipt I did not need. These moments were embarrassing, but they did not seem serious. I believed I could continue to pretend and solve the problems later. My friends often told me that it was normal to ask again. They reminded me that even native speakers sometimes misunderstood each other. I knew they were right, but when I was in a real conversation, fear controlled me. Instead of asking what someone meant, I watched their face and tried to guess. If they smiled, I smiled. If they looked serious, I tried to look serious. If they pointed somewhere, I looked in that direction. I became very good at appearing to understand. Then one day, that habit caused me to miss one of the most important appointments of my first year abroad. I was studying business at a community college and working part-time in a grocery store. Near the end of my first semester, my teacher told the class about a student internship program. A local company was looking for international students who could help with customer research in social media. The position was only for the summer, but it included training, good pay, and a possible recommendation for future jobs. I wanted to apply immediately. I completed the application carefully and asked a friend to check my English. A week later, I received an email inviting me to an appointment with the program coordinator. The meeting was not exactly a job interview. The coordinator wanted to review my documents, explain the program, and decide whether I was ready for the next stage. Still, I knew it was important. The appointment was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. The email gave the name of the college building and a room number. I checked the map several times and planned to arrive early. On Wednesday, the day before the appointment, I saw one of the program assistants near the library. She recognized my name and stopped to speak with me. The library entrance was busy. Students were walking around us, a cleaning machine was making noise, and music was playing from an event outside. The assistant spoke quickly because she was in a hurry. I understood that there had been a change to my appointment. I heard the words tomorrow, meeting, and second floor. I also heard the name West Hall, which was the building written in the original email. Then she said several words I did not understand. She spoke too fast, and the noise around us made everything less clear. I felt confused, but I did not want to stop her. She looked busy, and 2 other students were waiting to speak with her. She asked whether I understood the change. I smiled and nodded. She repeated one part of the information, but I still did not understand. I heard something that sounded like not West Hall, but I was not sure. I thought she might have said near West Hall or next to West Hall. I should have asked her to say that again. I should have asked what she meant. Instead, I pretended to understand. The assistant seemed satisfied and left. For a moment, I considered following her and asking again. Then I told myself that the change was probably not important. The appointment time was the same, and I believed the meeting was still in West Hall. That evening, I checked my email several times. There was no new message. I could have contacted the program office, but I felt embarrassed. I worried that asking about information I had already received would make me look careless. I decided to trust my guess. The next day, I prepared carefully. I printed my resume, collected my school documents, and wore a clean shirt and dark pants. The appointment was at 2 o'clock, so I arrived at West Hall at 1:35. I went to the second floor and found the room from the original email. The door was locked. I thought I was simply too early, so I waited in the hallway. At 1:50, no one had arrived. At 1:55, the room was still closed. I began to feel nervous, but I told myself the coordinator might be late. At 2 o'clock, I knocked on the door. There was no answer. I checked the room number again. It was correct. I walked to the office at the end of the hallway and asked an employee about the internship meeting. The employee looked confused. After checking the schedule, she explained that no internship meetings were taking place in West Hall that day. My stomach dropped. I took out my phone and opened the original email. The employee helped me call the program office. That was when I finally understood what the assistant had tried to tell me. The meeting had been moved from West Hall to the West Learning Center. The names sounded similar, but they were two different places. The West Learning Center was on another campus, almost 40 minutes away by bus. The assistant had tried to explain that I should not go to West Hall. She had also given me the new room number. I had heard some of her words, but had pretended to understand the rest. It was already 2:08. I asked whether the coordinator could wait, but the office worker explained that she had another appointment at 2:30. Even if I took a taxi, I would probably not arrive in time. I stood in the hallway feeling completely helpless. I had prepared my clothes, printed my documents, and arrived early. Still, I was in the wrong place because I had been afraid to ask one simple question. The program office said they would contact me later if another meeting time became available. They could not promise anything because many students had applied. I left West Hall and sat outside on the bench. I felt embarrassed and angry with myself. I wanted to blame the assistant for speaking too fast or the office for not sending another email, but I knew the main problem was my own choice. I had not understood. Instead of admitting that, I had pretended. The more I thought about it, the worse I felt. Asking the assistant to speak slowly would have taken only a few seconds. Asking what she meant would not have hurt anyone. I had been afraid of looking foolish. But now I had missed an important appointment and looked unreliable. That evening, I wrote an email to the coordinator. I explained what had happened and accepted responsibility. I admitted that I had misunderstood the location because I had been afraid to ask the assistant to repeat the information. I did not complain that the assistant had spoken too fast. I only explained that I was still learning how to communicate confidently in English. I apologized for missing the appointment and asked whether there was any chance to meet at another time. After sending the email, I expected no answer. The coordinator replied the next morning. She explained that the internship schedule was almost full, but one student had canceled an appointment for the following Monday. She offered me that time and reminded me to check the location carefully. I felt extremely relieved. I immediately opened the map and checked the West Learning Center. I found the bus route, saved the address, and looked at photos of the building. I also replied to the email by writing the full location and time, so the coordinator could confirm that I had understood correctly. On Monday, I left home more than an hour early. I arrived at the correct building 30 minutes before the meeting. The coordinator asked about the missed appointment. I told her the truth. I explained that I often felt confused when people spoke too fast, but had been afraid to ask again. I admitted that I sometimes nodded and pretended to understand because I wanted to appear confident. She explained that this habit could create serious problems in a workplace. Employees needed to understand instructions, deadlines, and customer needs. Pretending could lead to mistakes that affected an entire team. Her words were difficult to hear, but they were true. I explained that the experience had already changed the way I thought about communication. I no longer wanted to hide my confusion. I wanted to learn how to ask for clearer information and confirm important details. The rest of the meeting went well. Whenever I did not fully understand a question, I asked the coordinator to say it again. Once, I asked what she meant by a business term I had never heard before.
Each time, she explained, without showing any annoyance.
I realized that asking again did not make me look unprepared. It showed that I cared about giving the right answer. I was invited to the next stage of the program and later received the internship. During my first week, I continued to face difficult conversations. My supervisor spoke quickly, and several coworkers used informal expressions. Sometimes, I still felt confused. The difference was that I stopped pretending. When someone spoke too fast, I asked them to speak more slowly. When I did not understand an instruction, I asked them to explain it again. When a word was unclear, I asked what they meant. At first, I felt uncomfortable every time. My face became warm and I worried about wasting people's time. But most people simply repeated the information and continued. Sometimes my questions even helped other people. During one team meeting, my supervisor used a technical phrase that I did not understand. I asked what it meant, and 2 other interns admitted that they had also been confused. That moment showed me that silence did not always mean understanding. Other people were sometimes pretending too. I began using simple ways to check information. After receiving a task, I repeated the main points in my own words. I confirmed dates and locations by email. I wrote down new expressions and asked about them later. My English slowly improved because I was finally allowing people to help me. Before, I had thought that good English meant understanding everything the first time. Now I understood that good communication included knowing how to deal with confusion. Even native speakers ask people to repeat themselves. They ask what a word means, check an address, and confirm a time. These actions are not signs of failure. They are ways to prevent mistakes. A few months later, a new international student joined our internship team. During a meeting, I noticed that he nodded at every instruction. However, when the work began, he looked lost. I recognized the behavior because I had done the same things many times. I spoke with him privately and explained my experience. I told him about going to the wrong location and missing the appointment because I had pretended to understand. I encouraged him to ask again whenever he felt confused. After that, he became more comfortable asking questions. Sometimes we helped each other understand new words and fast conversations. Looking back, I know that missing the first appointment was a painful but useful lesson. I had spent years trying to hide every weakness in my English. I believed that confidence meant smiling and nodding, even when I understood nothing. Real confidence was different. Real confidence meant admitting when someone spoke too fast. It meant asking them to say that again. It meant being willing to ask what they meant instead of guessing. I still misunderstand people sometimes. Different accents, unfamiliar expressions, and noisy places can make communication difficult. But I no longer pretend that everything is clear. When I feel confused, I stop and ask. Most problems are easier to solve at that moment than later. A repeated sentence may take 10 seconds. Fixing a mistake caused by false understanding may take hours or even days. I once believed that asking questions would make people think my English was poor. In reality, pretending caused a much worse impression. It made me miss an important appointment and almost lose a valuable opportunity. That day taught me a simple lesson. It is better to be honest for a few seconds than confused for the rest of the day. It is better to ask again than travel to the wrong place. Most importantly, understanding is not something we should pretend to have. It is something we should work toward, one clear question at a time.